I like to reward my harem, if you will, with gifts they can use to further my needs than just cash they'd spend frivolously.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the Alien Familiar RPG Podcast. I am Clayton.
Kyle Perkins.
I'm Nina.
I'm Hayley.
This is a special guest, Brooke Burgess, creator of the most infamous online webcomic and famous webcomic, Broken Saints. I'd just like to thank everyone for having me on today, and I would just like to tell you all that I'm better than you. That was just Katie, unfortunately.
Lanina.
I'm Jordan.
Dang it, I was gonna go with a funny guest star bit, but
way to go.
I'm just Trip. I'm just here. The actual funny guest star.
We can now stop bleeping out your name, because we mention you a lot because we miss you so much. And we talk about you, and we have to bleep out your name because you've never been on the podcast.
I have been on the podcast.
What?
Yes.
Why do you keep bleeping out your name?
They were in an actual play.
Before she was on that episode, we were bleeping out her name. I haven't bleeped it since.
Huh.
Feels so special.
My memory isn't what it used to be.
We have a listener survey available for any and all listeners to complete about this podcast. So if you complete this survey, you will be entered into a drawing for a chainmail dice bag made by me. This survey will be up until the end of July. If you have anything that you would like to say about the podcast, please complete the survey. It'll be in a link in the show notes.
Are we allowed to enter?
You have a chainmail dice bag.
I have more dice!
Of course you're not allowed to enter.
Also, oh god, couldn't even go into the ethics of that.
So what's the topic?
Relevant D&D.
Well, first I need to say what our email address and stuff is.
It's fine.
Gmail.com.
Our actual email address is alienfamiliar.com. I'm sorry. Our actual email address is alienfamiliarmedia@gmail.com. Our website is alienfamiliar.com. So go there to get information about all of the stuff we are talking about. Our topic for today is we're going to be talking about rules that we ignore, rules that we never knew existed, or ones that we choose to never use, and why we choose to never use them.
So, all of them.
So what rules do we want to talk about first?
Well, I feel like we should definitely talk about D&D rules first, since they're the most common, and there's a lot of accessibility to the rules that we forget, because there's editions everywhere online and in print.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and just start with rules that I have seen ignored since I began playing any sort of role-playing game.
In 1927.
Yep. That old. Every edition has ignored spell components.
Mm-hmm.
Yet every edition keeps putting them in there.
Yeah. Of all of the things that D&D 5th edition has improved and made optional rules that were rules that nobody ever followed before, this has stuck around as something that is in the core book. It is a main rule that the D&D Sage Advice still gives rulings on whether or not you should, how this is being used, and I still have not encountered anybody who bothers to follow these rules. We'll start by talking about material components, and then we'll also go into verbal and somatic components and why these are always ignored.
Material components are so fucking dumb and specific. The third page of your 4th year college notebook where you doodled a bug.
They can be fun, character moments, though.
Yeah, this is the first time I'm playing a 5e wizard, and my character is based on the entire fact that I have a stick that was struck by lightning, and now my nickname is Lightning Rod.
Oh.
Yeah, but that's not a material component.
It is.
Yeah, it is.
No, it's not
like a
something
conduit.
you expend it every time you...
You don't always have to expend.
Not every time.
But that's your conduit for casting magic. It's not so much like
I
material
needed
components.
it for one spell.
Is that Witch Bolt?
Yeah.
I love Witch Bolt.
Maybe it's so unused that I'm literally not sure how they work. I always
That's
thought it was a
possible.
weird little thing in your pocket that you had to pull out, blow on or something, and then they're expended to use the
It
spell.
will specify spell
there's-
expends.
For warlocks, they can use their packed weapon as a spell focus.
So your
No.
Caliprod was your spell focus.
Yeah.
Okay.
And a lot of those will eliminate the need for material components and spells.
That don't have a gold piece cost.
Right.
Yeah.
If it's like a 500 gold piece pearl for an identify spell or something, you still have to get one of those. But if it's just like, Eye of Newt or something, then you don't have to worry about it. But then they also made the spell component part easier because you can just buy a component pouch, which is essentially the same thing. I don't know. That's all I have to say about that right now.
Yeah, I feel like it's something that is a cool idea in theory, but once you sit down and start playing the game, one, you're going to forget about it, and two, when you remember that it's there, you're going to realize, oh, I couldn't have just cast all of these spells I just cast.
Take it all back.
That's
Just
fun.
Wind it back.
Mm-hmm. Well, a big
Take a
problem
breath.
with it is that there's no in-game mechanic on how to harvest a lot of those spell components. So it's just like, well, all right, we're just waving it all. You know?
Yep.
There's no
Where
like,
am I supposed to find a diamond that is worth 1,000, or I think more gold pieces?
A lot of
Those kinds of things are actually easier than
Good
like
jewelers.
random particular flower or
Yeah.
something,
Finding a bunch of bat guano for casting fireballs.
Yeah.
Right.
Excuse me?
Yep.
Yeah, no, that's it.
Yep.
Bash it crazy.
I literally tried to set out to create a universe for this game we're all playing, well, most of us are playing, that had, like, equivalent exchange magic as, like, a core, very important part of it. And that just went out the fucking window. Haven't done anything with that.
What do you mean by that?
When I told you guys that magic would, like, require you to sacrifice a certain type of thing, and it would literally disappear once per day to make sure that you could keep casting spells associated with that particular god in my universe, I was going to be really strict about it, and really make sure that you guys were understanding the costs of magic.
Well, I'm the only divine spellcaster, though.
Yeah.
True, now at this point, you're right.
Yeah, because, like, when Nadani was like, did you know bards, all their magic comes from themselves? They pluck it from the strings of the universe.
Yeah, but a bard has to have a verbal component, a somatic component. So if you're playing a flute, you can't speak with your mouth, and you can't use your hands to make the magic. But you still have to have your spell focus, which is your flute.
Yeah.
You use your
Or-
nose.
I'm sorry, you're a clarinet.
Clarinet, yeah. I usually have my clarinet doing things. Don't really specify it often.
I'm trying to encourage you to form a band. You've got your clarinet, someone else is singing, and a third person is doing magic tricks, and there's all your components.
Is that what a band is?
That's
I've never been able to form one.
It doesn't say you have to be doing that the entire round. You know? You could be using both.
You could be like those
Got my
people
harmonica. And... Nails bone. That's like your round.
I was gonna go with like the people who like play flute and beatbox.
That's
at
what I
the
was
same
thinking
time.
too.
There you go.
It's some pretty impressive. That's gonna be my changing my bard concept for 13th age to be a flute beatboxer in Hellenistic Greece.
Hell yeah.
Done
I think I've been mixing up focus
with a sword.
components for material components because I just read that now and it says that materials are eviscerated every time. But
Amazing.
I've never been called out for it.
Well,
But we're also
So that's where we're at. People don't use
Nina
them.
R is literally right. There is no way, like, there's no massive list to show you how much a pint of bat guano costs at a shop. How much is a sprig of hemlock? How many fourth year of mage school notebooks do you have that you can rip pages out of? Like, it just kind of adds that shit in there for filler. Make the book longer.
I feel like, if anything, you can use material components for story pushing, but that's that. Other than putting it in your backstory and or in the main story, it's going to be very difficult to actually do.
The writers were paid by the word.
I can't imagine playing a game in which I would be forced to use material components every time. It does not sound fun.
Yeah, you
Although-
spend most of your time shopping at the markets.
Yep.
Oh, that sounds nice, though.
I
love shopping.
Shopping episode.
Yeah, shopping sessions are always a hit.
Yeah, everybody has a ton of fun at those.
I like the vocal and the somatic components, so those ones make me have a lot of fun, as long as you're not playing a serious wizard.
There's some stakes in that like it's difficult to stealth magic.
Yeah.
Or like when you're tied up that limits you. That actually affects gameplay that I dig.
There's always that bit where you're a druid, and it's like, oh, you can now, like, do the somatic component while in animal form. Everyone's like, woo, or wild shape, whatever it's called.
I just looked up the component pouch item description in the player handbook, and it basically says it's a pouch to put your components in. It doesn't
What?
say, like...
Cool.
So it doesn't come with any components?
I mean, I'll read it right now. A component pouch is a small watertight leather belt pouch that has compartments to hold all the material components and other special items you need to cast your spells, except for those components that have a specific cost, as indicated in the spell's description.
I think that would
In
seem
paragraph.
to imply that it comes
has,
with it.
like,
Like you've
components.
pre-shopped.
But every other container is bought as empty.
Yeah.
And it specifically says that it is a container.
Now, granted, if it's just a container, it's a 25 gold piece leather pouch.
Maybe there's like a limit with your DM on like what you can have in there, and you buy it.
Does it list like number of uses or anything?
No. But by comparison, a regular pouch is 5 silver pieces.
It's masterwork level.
So
It's because it's an
gotta
organized
come with
pouch.
stuff.
It's got compartments in it.
It's got a really cool design on the outside.
It's like a
It
Hermione's
says
endless
component
pouch.
pouch. It's embossed.
There's finger guns and everything.
It's got little like magical symbols, like oh look, magic pouch.
Mine says components in the Metallica font.
Some runes and shit. Yeah,
It
no,
sounds like a lot of too much to have fun with.
I said it could be cool character stuff, but also I totally ignore that. Like, in all of the things that I'm playing.
It's only useful when you're doing character stuff.
I'm really mad that my Blood Rager, like, has a specific feat that's like, oh, eschew materials. You don't need materials above a certain extent. That's, like, one of the cool things I get when I level, and I'm like, we weren't acknowledging this anyway. This feat is just what we're already doing.
Except you feel less bad about it.
You should change that so that you get shoe materials and you become a cobbler at a certain level.
You know,
That's just what I want
receptionist
life
from
to be
hell,
like.
cobbler on the side.
So I singled out bards as being one of them who, by the rules, it's impossible for them to actually cast the spells. But another class that is impossible for them to actually cast those spells as written would be a cleric who has a shield in one hand, a weapon in another hand, and they still need to have a somatic component where they manipulate their hands. So by the rules, if you've got a weapon in your hand, you have to stow the weapon as an action, cast your spell, and then if you want the weapon back in your hand, it takes another action to get your weapon out.
What about your shield hand, though?
What if you just have something that like holds it in front of you when you have to let go, like one of those like handless harmonicas?
Like when you march with a clarinet and
Yeah.
you're lazy.
Jordan, your shield hand is holding your divine focus because your shield has the symbol of your deity on it. So that's what that hand is doing. It's manipulating your divine focus.
And I've never used a shield as a cleric.
I always do.
Yeah. So if you had a shield strapped to your forearm, you can have your hand free to fucking...
What do you mean have your hand free? Your hand is like in the leather grip.
Only works
Like
if
it's
it's
like this.
Yeah, like a small wrist shield.
You could have a shield that's just on your forearm, like strapped into places, and then have a free
Oh,
hand.
that seems
Or
uncomfortable.
like an optional grip thing.
Or you ignore the rule.
Or you
But
ignore
but those are not practical shields.
Bucklers don't protect as much.
5th edition doesn't have bucklers.
Oh.
So they fixed that problem.
Right. Do you have to be fingering your holy symbol for it to work, or can you just like have it on?
Excuse me?
You can
You heard me.
You gotta get
you
way
can
up
have
there.
it on.
Okay, so you
Like
can
you
have,
can you can still have like a pendant.
you could have sweet baby Jesus around your neck and still do some, God bless you thing.
But you've still got
That's what cardinals in Rome
like
do.
present the symbol.
What if it's on your shoe and you're like, aha! Here is my symbol!
High kick at your enemies.
Exactly.
Yes.
Could you just get it tattooed somewhere?
On your forehead.
That's what we are doing in one of mine, where we just all have holy symbol tattoos on our hands. It's just practical. Yeah, I got a sick ass wasp
It's like
tag.
that movie Priest. You could just get the cross, Yeah, I'm painting it across my nose and my upper face.
But there is one reason why you can't do that.
Oh yeah.
In the rules, there's no cost for putting a tattoo on your face of your holy symbol. Therefore, it can't be done.
What about commissioning an
Are you
artist?
serious?
If there's no rules in the book for it, then it's not rules as written.
Yeah, we're
Welcome to hell.
So just pretend your face is your shield.
What about there has to be rules for ceremonial war paint if you paint the symbol on your face. Or is that not
There's no
relevant
rules
either?
for that.
There's no rules for war paint in D&D.
Find it.
Are you absolutely kidding me? I am. Continuing this conversation, I'm going to be on the rulebook.
Specifically 5e.
Yep.
I'll go with anything in any of the core books ever for D&D. So talking about, like, not being able to cast spells because your hands are all occupied. I also touched on another thing that is always ignored, in my games anyway, is the action that it takes to stow an item or retrieve an item.
Yeah.
It's always assumed, like, okay, I'm going to use my, in my bonus action, I want to say, to drink my potion. Well, that assumes your potion was in your hand to begin with. Most of the time it's in your backpack.
It is now part of your move, like kind of a free thing to draw an item and stow in one round, right? So you could stow a thing, draw a thing, use a thing, but then that leaves you holding an empty bottle. For
But I'm pretty sure it still specifies that if it's in your backpack, it takes more of an action.
How would you keep it there?
You weren't expecting
Isn't
to
it-
need it.
Technically a stand, like a full, like an action to drink a potion nowadays. I don't know. I think that
In
I don't know.
3rd edition, it was a standard action.
Yeah.
5th or 4th edition, it was a minor action. I'm pretty sure in 5th it's a bonus, but I might be wrong on that.
Is D&D Beyond a direct link to the SRD?
No. There's other material on there.
But it would count, right?
No.
No.
D&D Beyond is their answer to Roll20.
So it would be official.
No, this is all, like, well, a lot of the stuff on D&D Beyond is, like, made by fans.
there's specific homebrew content, but it would be
Is it
covered under
labeled as
homebrew.
such?
Yes, it is labeled as such. Sometimes subtly. I got real excited about some things that I did not actually get.
It's a wondrous item, and it is uncommon. But there is war paint. A thick white paint stored in a short clay container. Speck of ore can be seen within. When applied to the skin, increases the wearer's natural armor by 1 AC for a duration of 9 hours. Now, note, takes 30 minutes to fully apply.
Jesus.
The war paint washes off if exposed to moderate or greater rainfall, or if the wearer is submerged for more than 1 round. This benefit only applies to unarmored creatures.
Okay.
There we go. So there's a
So
rule.
tell me,
that
where's
makes
your
me
war
extremely
paint gonna
happy.
get
So,
happening?
in all of that, I never heard the words divine focus.
Sure, so but you could just paint it on there. You said there was no rules for war paint.
Being a divine focus.
Oh, I thought we were arguing over war paint existing.
Where you were like, this is the hill I will die on.
Absolutely.
It exists.
I was
Well,
like,
my
I know
original
I've
point
read
was
war
there is
paint.
no rules for
Tattoos.
tattoos being
Tattoos.
a divine focus.
Yeah, we just homebrew in that.
I love this idea that the DM could be like, with a crack of thunder, the rain begins. And how heavy is the rain? There's a good amount of it. I mean, like, specifically, it's, you want, like, the per, like, inch per hour? Like, what do I need for, is it moderate? Yes. Fuck!
I like that it has to be moderate rain, but if you're submerged for a specific amount of time, it's gone, but not when you hit water. Which is bizarre. to
Yeah, it's
me.
for 1 turn. If you're submerged for 1 turn, it washes off.
But that doesn't make sense if you're submerged at all.
I feel like my eyeliner lasts like a little bit of swimming.
Yeah, but I feel like they don't have waterproof materials.
No, but
Is
even
I like
my
our war paint?
even my
It can't be.
non-waterproof makeup lasts through moderate rainfall. So
Yeah.
you know,
I
But
took
it lasts through moderate rainfall, but it doesn't last being submerged in water.
no, that's fair. But I'm talking about the moderate rainfall.
No, I'm
I'm not
Oh, I see, I see, okay,
no.
okay.
I took my cosplay makeup to Colossal Con and went on several water slides, and it stayed perfect for like 2.5
You also
hours.
used
War
a
paint could
ceiling
work.
spray.
We're tangenting.
Fight me. Makeup is very important to half this table.
I was going to say in the combat chapter on the list of stuff that you can do, like, for free with objects as part of your movement, there is draw or sheathe a sword, there's withdraw a potion from your backpack, there is also stuff food into your mouth and drink all the ale in a flagon.
Wow.
No, it doesn't say you can only do one of those things as part of your movement.
Yikes.
So if you wanted to, draw and sheathe and pull and drink and eat and move around,
Gonna chug.
you
So-
can do all that stuff.
Like in an
Wild
Elder
and-
Scrolls game, you can pause it, go into your menu, and eat like 50 loaves of bread, and then be healed.
And don a mask when you're done.
Love it.
Great.
Wow.
Pathfinder
So that's what
still
you can do for free now.
is still like
Well,
You
not
gotta-
for free. It It's part of your movement.
Well, yeah. But I mean, it's no different than walking across the room.
I think the reason people are so impatient with that is because it's not something you think about. It's like, oh, I need that backpack. I can do that while moving. It's fine. But D&D focuses like second by second, minute by minute, and we don't, as people, think like that.
And in a combat, you're not thinking at all.
Pathfinder is a little more, I guess, stringent about that, in that, like, you have to have a feat to be able to draw a weapon while rolling initiative. Otherwise, it, like, takes a move action to just draw your weapon or whatever. But I don't know specifically because we ignore the shit out of that.
Multitasking doesn't exist in RPGs. It's not a thing, essentially.
So that's why we break the rules.
Yeah.
Pathfinder's the same as 3.5, right? You got a fast action, a move action, and a standard action.
Yeah.
Or you can do a full round action.
Because is this a free action? I mean, at some point?
I'm sure it was.
Yeah.
I trust you more than I trust you more than me regarding internetism.
So I've got one other material, or one other component of spells that is not in the current edition, but has existed in 3rd edition and prior. And that is experience point cost for some spells.
I saw that in the online place that I just was, that I don't remember the name of, and I've never heard of that.
Certain spells, Wish has, in previous editions, always cost experience points in order to cast. But that's a 9th level spell.
Meaning you lose levels, or
you lose experience points.
Okay.
If the experience points would take you below your current level, you could not cast the spell.
Huh.
Wow.
So, like, that would work if we, like, gave experience points as, like, a consistent thing, which we used to do in Eclipse Phase, right?
What do you
Was
mean?
it Eclipse Phase?
You mean gave experience points?
Instead of milestone
Instead of,
leveling.
yeah.
Oh, gotcha. Right.
Which is, like, I don't remember. No, it was your game that we did that, right? Where we got experience points? I'm trying to remember. I remember writing down points and erasing them at some point.
In Savage Worlds, yes, you do gain like 2 experience points per session. 2 or 3, depending on the session.
But I think that's
Oh, I remember that, yeah.
Because we tried to do that, and it just doesn't end up working out. Because
Yeah.
you forget, or people aren't there, and then it's like, who gets what?
Yep.
So I can
And
see why that would fall out of favor.
I hate using the experience points as numbers that you accumulate. I've switched mostly to doing basically what 5th edition is being called milestone. But in my online D&D 5th edition game that I've got going on, I'm still giving out experience points to everybody. But at the very beginning of the campaign, I was doing it strictly as it was written in the book. And a few sessions later, people had lost track of how many experience points they had, even though I was posting it online. And the disparity, people not being able to track how much experience points they had, each person having a different amount of experience points and therefore leveling up at different times.
Yeah.
I hate doing that. I want everybody to be on the same page so that we have to spend as little effort and mental energy into keeping track of everybody at the table. So I just hand out the same amount for everybody. Either if I'm still giving out experience points, you all gain the same amount of experience points, whether you are there or not. Everybody has the amount of experience points that I'm writing down at the end of the session.
At that point, why wouldn't you just do milestone? You know?
Right.
I like that just because I feel like it's not a fun mechanical thing to have some players be like, have more cool stuff to do than other players. I just don't think that contributes to everybody's enjoyment.
Plus, once you're ahead, it's very hard to catch up.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just consistently higher level than everybody else. It's easy to fall down. It's hard to get up.
I don't feel like penalizing somebody who misses a session because their grandmother died.
Cool.
You can give them bonus XP for their grandmother dying?
Real question that someone here is asking.
Yeah, so my character is going to be out of the Pathfinder campaign for a while because I am an idiot and I keep dying. But when she comes back from hell, she's going to be at the same level and she's going to have leveled up to the same degree as whatever the rest of the characters are, just because.
That's just my
Otherwise,
friends talking
lame.
about me after I've been gone for a while. When she
That's
gets
not
back
me.
from hell.
Except I'm back from California, so that's not.
So you're back
exactly
to
I like it here, guys.
So in Pathfinder, whenever you die, do you lose a level?
There is some temporary negative levels. I don't know if is doing that faithfully to the rules my DM or not, but we do have temporary loss of levels, and there are scrolls that we can buy to get back. So we've technically been observing that, but basically it's just it costs a little more to res you.
Because that's something I always ignore, is the level loss.
Yeah, it's real annoying.
Or constitution loss, depending on the
ability
edition.
score loss.
Yeah, there's a reason why that's not in the current edition.
I kind of like the varying experience point levels between players for a lot of different reasons, but I think it definitely would get out of control in 5th edition like you're talking about because it's so goddamn hard to die. But in the past, with stuff like that, like, it's super lethal, so it's always kind of this, oscillating, like, average group XP that's, fairly close together.
Another reason why I don't use it is if one player is lagging a little behind, say they're 4th level, and the rest of the players are 5th level, then when I'm calculating the experience that everybody gets, that factors into how much experience points the entire encounter was worth. And it's another level of minutia that I want to play fast and get it over with. I don't want to, 4th level means that they get this much experience points, and then the 3 other players have this other amount of experience points, so I add all of those together, and then I divide them by 4, and there's your result.
That's part of that mechanic of keeping everybody together. So 1st level guy killing a dragon with a bunch of 15th level guys gets out of 1st level real fast. Okay, we've got 8 players here at the table. Show of hands, who keeps track of their ammo?
I love that we're raising hands
sometimes
on the podcast.
That sounds like a no.
I do it in Apocalyptia.
Okay, so
I want my gold star.
So was that a half hand, and are you half or full hand?
I'm only a half hand because I haven't used ammo for a character in... I can't remember the last time I had a character with ammo, so this new character has ammo, and I'm keeping track of it for now.
Okay, so that's 3 and 2 halves out of 8.
Not only do I keep track of ammo, I kept track of my rations until I ran out of rations and I didn't have any more money to buy any more.
Holy shit.
Did you start applying strength penalties to yourself covertly?
So I'm playing an archer right now. I have no idea how many arrows I've had or used. I know that you gave me those really fun arrows. I've just been shooting.
You guys are allowed to say, like, my character's out of food. Would anyone like some stew?
Would anyone like some stew?
You gotta tell me these things. I trust you all to be keeping track of your things.
I didn't even know I was supposed to pack rations.
You trust us?
Kyle, you did say at the very beginning of the campaign that we weren't going to be keeping track of mundane things like food. It was going to be assumed that we had enough unless you stated prior that it was going to be an issue.
Thank you. Defending me when I cannot defend myself.
After I was the one who attacked you, yes, I still defend you.
I've
Is this an
literally...
abusive relationship?
Oh my god.
Oh no.
Oh, yikes.
I've never counted anything because I hate math. I didn't get a degree in it. But the idea of having to count ammo and rations, I think, is a fun mechanic that a lot of people don't use. Although it's extremely stressful because then I feel like most of your game would just be a survival RPG rather than focusing on the plot. Because I have to go shopping and then go into groceries. Then I have to wager with the person at the groceries.
Real quick, is counting math?
Yeah, you gotta be like a master's in math and magic to have a proficiency in
You've
counting.
taken at least
Mathematic.
2
The last
calculus
time I took-
classes to do 2 plus 2.
I haven't taken a math class since I was in high school, so it's really hard.
Me neither, but I could count since I was 3, so...
I just feel like counting things like that is, unless it is part of the game like Apocalyptia, it is just another thing to remember.
Yeah.
And I already forget a lot of what my character does, let alone what she needs to eat every day.
Are you trying to tell, like, a wondrous, high fantasy, romantically tinged epic? Or are you trying to have people feel like they're surviving in a horrible world that has undergone an apocalypse?
Both
Yeah.
are valid.
And I think that in one of those, you probably want to count ammo.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, outside of Apocalyptia, I've really only ever played one character where I had to keep track of ammo. And I'll have you know, I kept track of ammo meticulously.
Hell yeah.
But then, when I realized that all that was happening by me keeping track of ammo meticulously was I was nerfing myself, I just stopped. And so then he'd be like, do you have to reload? And I'd be like, actually, I just did last turn.
Mm-hmm.
I'm full on ammo. And he'd be like, okay. And then I would just keep shooting. So that was more of me. My lack of hand raising was like an edgy protest vote against ammo as a system, more than it was me not keeping track of it. Just to be clear that I have done it. If anyone at the table thought that I didn't do it, I did.
I was defo supposed to be tracking ammo in Eclipse Phase, and let me tell you how much I did not track ammo in Eclipse Phase.
Kyle, I never fired a shot, which was fine. Which is also good because then I didn't have to count ammo.
Kyle, in our current game, I have 18 arrows.
Do you have a bow to use them with?
Yeah, I've used the bow.
My God, KD!
Yeah.
What are you doing?
I have 6
Paying
darts
attention to
and
myself and
6
myself
hand
alone.
crossbow bolts.
I'm just really stabby, so I'm never
With
shooting
swords,
through
yeah.
Yeah, I
fire,
sure
which
do
is why
have
I
one
die
sword.
all the time.
You know, when I
Two
think
hand
about
axes.
it, some of my best characters that I like the most are characters that just punch things. And I think that's because I don't have to worry about ammo.
Kyle, should I be keeping track of my clarinet reeds?
Yes.
Yes.
Where did you get clarinet reeds?
I make them.
You walk into a
Little
small
bit.
town. I need clarinet reeds. The only reeds you can find are 1.5s.
No. God, no.
How do you guys feel about the botch equals out of ammo rule?
Boring.
It's around sometimes.
Make the gun misfire.
It's in Savage Worlds, and I love it.
I like the idea of something terrible happening instead.
Yeah. You mean as opposed to counting ammo, and that's just
Yeah,
a
yeah,
thing?
yeah.
Oh, that's great. I love that. Okay. That sounds great.
I think there was a Star Wars game I was playing in where we did that, but I don't remember if that was a house rule or part of that version. It was like the Saga edition. I think it's a reasonable alternative.
Don't
Just
be so
thinking.
quiet.
So not just arrows, but any and all mundane equipment. After character creation, do we ever really look and see what all the items we have in our Explorers packs and our Dungeoneers packs or whatever else
No.
we got?
The rule that I always not pay attention to, but not pay attention to is carrying weight. I'm a really big offender of that in Apocalyptian. I'm sorry, but
Isn't that not a big thing in
it's
Apocalypse?
a super big thing.
Rad.
I've been getting better at it, but just knowing how much I can carry through it's con, right?
Mm-hmm.
How much constitution
Usually.
you have, yeah. Especially since we started KP's game, I have so much rope, and I have a set of fine noble clothing. But throughout this entire campaign, I've had fucking wardrobes, and I don't want to think about how much it's gonna have to carry.
Well, you have an entourage
I
to
do
carry.
have an entourage. I'm a noble lady.
Well, in 5th edition, encumbrance is a variant rule.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even on the character sheet.
Yep.
The only time I've looked in my Explorers pack is when my DM is just like, hey, do you have this? And I Google Explorers pack and I'm like, what's in here? What have I used? And usually it does.
Do you know what I know that I have? I have a rope in my Explorers pack, and I have a quill for forging in my Performance pack, and makeup for disguises. Anything other than those 2 things, I'm like, no, don't need it.
I feel like you ignore them until the time when you inevitably try to find a long shot used for 1,000 ball bearings.
I've got a text document in the same folder as my character sheet for Kyle's game that is broken down into everyday personal gear I'm carrying, expeditionary gear that I would take with me, what is stored back in my place wherever I'm staying, and random shit that I would outfit like assistants with if we're going on an adventure.
God, we get it. You're good at games. Don't need to brag.
So-
No,
Wait.
I'm fucking anal about lists.
Is it in an Excel sheet?
No.
Oh.
Text document so I can
Lenina's
easily
like,
edit it in Dropbox.
If it's not an Excel sheet, I'm not here for it.
I don't need to
This
do
makes some of us
formulas on it.
anxious, so...
Maybe you should be using an open source spreadsheet editor instead of a Microsoft product.
Look, I
God damn
can operate my Microsoft products on my phone, and that's what I'm here for. I need lists all the time.
The only thing I keep a consistent Google Doc for is my list of 484 band names.
484.
Fuck off, fairy wings.
It's going on there. It's
Fuck
gonna be
you,
like,
fairy wings. So
Fuck you,
sorry.
fairy
both are
wings.
good.
God, quote me
Right.
correctly, y'all.
Stop fuck off is one of them.
Oh, I like that.
Another piece of gear that,
Like
that
your-
after first level is pretty much ignored. Torches.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Who needs torches when you have dark
Illumination.
vision?
That's a good point. The majority of races or classes have an option of being able to get dark vision in some way, just so that you can completely ignore the illumination rules.
What's that thing you have? The stone thing where things glow and then you throw it? Touch of light?
Radiant light?
You touch a thing and it make it light.
The light cantrip.
The light cantrip, yeah.
But even with having a torch, the torch creates dim light conditions, and that's only 20 feet out from 20 to 40 feet out. Anything that's in that, you're supposed to have disadvantage on any attack rolls that you're attacking with something that is in dim light.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're doing dark vision, if you don't have a light source, dark vision only allows you to see in dim light. So you should always be rolling with a disadvantage whenever you attack with just seeing with dark vision.
I feel like that would be more viable if we were at a consistent basis of using actual spacing, but very rarely do we do that. Yeah. So it's hard to tell what's 40 feet and what's 60 feet.
I've been told that if we don't do a grid-based combat next session, people will mutiny and quit my game.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't say I would quit the game.
No,
I think Jordan said he'd kill you.
Characters in the game.
But I do want to have mounted combat. I want to actually use my horse. Or my
I was gonna say, well, fuck, what's his name? Not Isaac. Lecter. Lecter is not a horse. He's so much more than that.
Well, I've got a horse in our current location. Lecter is on his way.
Dude, I just fucking airdrop him like from a helicopter? Like, how the fuck does that work? A tactical Lecter arrival?
Does it take him more or less time to arrive since he's really big? Because when you're really big, you have to walk slower, but your leg pacing is bigger. Was this speed travel?
I don't remember what the speed for my giant lizard is.
A giant lizard?
Yeah.
I feel like lizards are really fast.
Yeah, well,
They
some
over
of
short
them
distances.
They can, like...
Komodo dragon, they go beep, 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 beep. Sorry, beep, beep,
His
beep,
name
beep.
is Lecter, and he can comprehend common.
I love him.
He's pretty great.
He's
I
gigantic.
love my owlbear cub son, Wallace.
Wallace, the perfect owlbear name.
I found him in the woods as an orphan, and the, fighter who's had none of my shit comes up and is like, what the fuck is this? And I'm like, his name is Wallace, because I was like, she would have named him already. So, it's the first thing that sprang to my mind, and now we're stuck with it.
I think I'd be really into grid-based combat if it was something I was introduced to early on, but it's just not something that I was introduced to until I started playing with you.
Well, even if you're on a grid, how are you going to represent, okay, around the characters this 20 feet, everybody remember that you can see fine within this 20 feet, and then from 20 to 40 feet, you all have disadvantage here, and only one person is having a torch at a time most of the time.
Translucent
scale.
colored discs.
Yes, I was gonna say to scale radius.
Yeah.
Cut out
But translucent so you can still see the grid.
Those
That's
exist. They are fucking expensive because...
Why? Make your own.
DIY tip for everybody. Come to Joanne's where I work. We can sell you clear plastic, and then you get Crayola markers, and then you paint on them, and then you put a little hairspray on top of it, and it seals it.
Or just use saran wrap.
This
No,
is starting to
Warhammer
sound way
sucks.
too much like Warhammer 40k, and I did that in high school. I'm not doing that again.
Also, you could just use any clear, what's it
Like a
called?
little Starbucks cup
No.
top.
But yes, but no, what are they called? I don't know.
Are you telling me I could make those and
Lids?
sell them?
No.
Since they're easy to make.
Absolutely.
Oh,
You
well. Time to quit my job.
Containers. Storage containers.
But
Thank you.
the point of the owlbear was I can't wait till I'm in mounted combat on my fucking owlbear.
I've never actually done mounted combat because it seems too complex.
Excuse me, we rode wyverns in Abena.
I don't
Not in combat.
Not in combat.
Yes.
Yes,
were.
we did. I literally...
did.
We had
You
one
fought
person.
dragons on them.
I
forgot.
took my fucking wyvern that I loved and wore its little talents, and I was like, we're gonna go shoot this big thing. I remember this specifically. We had a bonding moment.
I feel like I was a pacifist in that game.
Oh shit, was that bad? Different archer. Whoopsies.
I'm an archer in this current game. I was a fish in that game.
Does anybody take care of their mounts? Does anybody brush them? Does anybody water them? Does anybody make sure they have fresh
I have people
Do you
for
take
that.
care of Lecter?
We left Lecter.
He's,
To answer that
he's a
question.
hunter. I spend most of the off wandering. He's intelligent enough to come back whenever I need him.
You don't have to brush a lizard.
You have to bathe him.
When we don't forget about Wallace for entire sessions, we taught him tricks. We tried to teach him how to stand on his hind legs and perform, but we just succeeded at
Ewok.
teaching him to fart on command instead. Who would have thought that would start to the session?
Does it have a D4 damage dice for his farts?
For his farts? No.
Damn it. What's the point?
But we make sure he's getting enough food because he's a fierce hunter, even as a baby.
Well, even in one of my longest running games, we completely forgot about my animal companion, and he just doesn't exist anymore. We just completely stopped.
That happens a lot.
Yeah.
It's depressing.
The worst part is
about human companions.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Wallace is Ty's best friend. If he just went away, she would die.
Is there anything else that we want to mention about D&D? Because there's a lot of other systems that I would like to rant about.
We can go on to other systems.
Okay, by other systems, I specifically mean Vampire the Masquerade. The only thing I'm here for.
Go for it.
So, there's so many rules in Vampire the Masquerade and the World of Darkness in general that I personally do not encounter. My favorite one is humanity. Because I love the idea of keeping track of humanity, but the appeal to me in Vampire the Masquerade is that you play awful fucking people. And I don't want to keep track of my humanity because it's going to be 4 turns and then I'm welcome to the beast because I've already killed so many people. And it's really upsetting. I feel like for a lot of the storylines in Vampire that at least I've played in and have encountered, humanity hinders the creative abilities to be a shitty person. It's like, I just really want to see that guy over there. I just really want to kill him. He just really has a killable face.
And
you know what?
Alignments.
It's my fantasy to just be able to walk up to a guy, stab him in his throat, and then walk away like nothing happened. And humanity really crimps my style.
I'm stressed.
So we found the murder hobo at the table.
I'm not a murder hobo, but only in Vampire the Masquerade am I a murder hobo. It's great. It's my one game I get to be shitty. But in D&D, there's not really, you have your alignments, but there's nothing like, oh, you literally you killed a goblin. How do you feel about that? And then you have to stop, and then you have to, like, check your humanity alignment chart, and it's a whole thing that I don't want to deal with.
I think the idea is that it makes death more legit in the game.
I mean, it does, but what happens about death on a large scale? They don't think of that.
Set stakes on your shittiness, man.
Either drop your humanity or deal with the consequences.
No consequences ever.
I think this is the reason for this humanity tracker.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely has its reason, and I know people who use it in their games, and that's totally fine. I've just personally never once thought about it.
Yeah, I completely agree. The humanity, the way it is in the game is everybody starts at the same humanity by the rules. Everybody should start at whatever humanity they think their character is going to be.
I love that.
I didn't start very high.
Most people would only start at like 4 or 5.
Yeah,
I'm just messing with you, by the way.
You've literally played in my game with 0 humanity. You were also a terrible person.
Of course.
You were poisoning the New York water supply. Fuck you.
Oh, that's right.
But I was also very
Our
charming.
characters got together.
We were in
I
love.
forgot.
I have an epilogue for you guys because I'm running a sequel, which I need to talk to you about later.
Okay.
But also, humanity, morality. Anyone want to talk about that before I bulldoze on next?
I feel like it can be a good story plot, but also the idea of humanity, morality, sanity, all of it is a fun gameplay.
Yeah, I definitely like the idea of bringing it into role-playing aspects, but the minute that you pull out a chart and there's numbers, and then there's like, oh, but you dropped a point in humanity, you get this physical bestial feature, and then you also can't do this thing anymore. I was like, I don't want to deal with that.
That's just gangrel.
That's true, that is just gangrel, but
you might gain derangements as well.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And that's another thing that's completely ignored.
Yeah.
The only system I actually use derangements or insanity or anything is Call of Cthulhu.
Mm-hmm.
I think, it was similar to Call of Cthulhu, I don't remember what it was, but there was one where, like, if you drop below a certain point, your character literally just lost their shit and left.
Eclipse Space had something like that.
It wasn't Eclipse Phase, it was
Changeling?
Nope, it was a much...
Cthulhu Dark.
It's Cthulhu Dark.
I have definitely handed over my character sheet to the DM because I went too low insanity.
And they're just like, your character runs off into the woods. Your character gets stepped on by a big giant thing. Your character turns into a fish person, and you go insane.
I got my sanity back.
I didn't.
A little bit of it.
That's, like, it's very rarely talked about, because it's hard to do. Question mark?
in Call of Cthulhu, it's incredibly difficult. You actually have to go to therapy in order to get it back, and it's over the course of months.
Too real.
It's like real life, yeah.
In Cthulhu Dark, you just had to destroy something that was accompanying your insanity. So, like, you had like a book that you read that told you this thing about this thing, and you burned it. You get a point of sanity back.
I wish that was real life.
Right?
Holy shit.
We could just... Oh, I'm not gonna go there. Never mind.
Well, in any World of Darkness game, I pretty much always ignore virtues and vices. Like, you make them when you make your character, you get really in think, like, ooh, what's a good dichotomy for my virtue and vice? And you get maybe excited about it, and then you just fucking do nothing with it.
But then attached to that, the virtues and vices are solely, like, from what I understand of the rules, attached to regaining willpower.
Mm-hmm.
And if you ignore those, then you just keep refreshing your willpower, because you use them a lot. But I really want to use the virtues and vices more in my games. I like the idea of the system, especially because it's something concrete that you do to get extra points, or get extra XP, or get willpower, where in something like Changelings, like, you eat dreams. What does that mean? How do I go about doing that? I don't understand it, so whenever I do changes, like, yep, you're all back. Next day, you had a long rest. Mm-hmm. I hand wave that rule all the time, because I don't understand how weird works. Weird is a weird system.
You stated very succinctly kind of the underlying thought behind a lot of these rules is they seem like they're going to be cool, but then when you actually get into playing, you just forget about them, or they're not cool to actually roleplay the mechanics of keeping track of all of this stuff.
Yeah.
Fun in theory, bad in application.
Mm-hmm.
Virtue and
Like
vice,
calculus.
the virtue and vice system sucks because if you can do it one of two ways, you can have the storyteller adjudicate when those things are relevant, in which case you take the number of players you have in your game and then double it, and then judge that many dimensions of social interaction for relevance to get back a willpower point each. The other thing is, let the fucking players keep track of it, in which case everyone's always going to fucking argue, oh yeah, I totally did this and that, and who wants to be the asshole? It's like, no, you're full of shit.
There's a middle ground there somewhere.
Virtue and vice, like Kyle said, start off with this cool dichotomy, and then rapidly it becomes like you're either just like, yeah, right before the session ends, I help an old lady across the street carry your groceries, charitable, get that point of willpower back, or you end up...
And then I go hire a prostitute to get another for my lust.
Yeah. or you'll be like some very strange circumstance where you'll be like, yeah, to open the door, like, I knew I could have opened it, but I was temperate and chose the middle path, and so I really worked hard to open the door. I think that counts for temperate. And the game master's like, yes, sure, okay, sure. Yeah, alright, sure. But then you're like, I don't know. They don't really end up corresponding with actual character roleplay, which is unfortunate.
I do like mechanics that like revolve around narrative and revolve around character development and growth, because it encourages more than just like kill the thing, get the points, win the thing. But I also say that being a denizen of chaos. And
who's the murder hobo now?
Chaos, murder, not always the same. Okay, I'm chaotic good. Okay, so I think that I like that there exist mechanics that encourage narrative and like looking at what your character is doing and what their arc is as a person, but I always want there to be a lot of room to hand wave in that. Like with alignment or with humanity or with sanity, to kind of engage in that and have the DM be like, sure, there are some mechanical repercussions or gains to be had, but it's only like real if it's like merited by the story, and there can be hand wavingness to make it progress the story rather than progress the rule.
Yeah.
The D&D 5th edition designer basically said that alignment's only in it for tradition's sake at this point. There's just nothing that interfaces with that particular box in the character sheet.
Something that I think is interesting that is often ignored in Vampire the Masquerade, which is a huge thing about it, is the Masquerade itself and the rules pertaining to the Masquerade. Simply because, like you were talking about for plot, it would heavily affect your games, because I have the list pulled up from White Wolf of all of, I don't know how many traditions, 6 traditions that there are. And they're just really small things that, like, if you do this, and most games are played in the Camarilla or the Anarchs, there's huge precautions that you gotta go through this whole fucking thing. Like, if thou creates another with thine elders leave, both thou and thy prodigy shall be slain. Which means you can only sire a vampire with permission. There's one about, when you break the masquerade, you renounce your claims of blood, which, I interpret that as, like, if a paladin revokes their oath, they lose their fucking powers. The masquerade is weird. There's, one about hospitality and rules about Elysium. They're so fucking wordy.
Well, most of the, like, social rules that are imposed on player characters are just there so that the player characters can flaunt them and abuse them as an expression of their power.
Yeah, I know, but at the same time, there's no, like, actual consequences. Like, if you're dealing with a prince and a sheriff and, oh god, there's another one that hunts down caitiff, if you break that, you have to answer to them. You're probably going to end up with a fight, or at least some sort of diplomatic unity where you have to owe them a favor, or you have to go do a thing, and that'll take so much away from the actual story that you're telling. I mean, obviously these rules are going to get broken. That's half the fun of Vampire the Masquerade.
So
but I've
like
never
the rules for the
encountered
culture.
actual consequences for breaking those rules. It's always hand-waved, even though they're written as, like, if you do this, you will die.
I don't know what you guys are doing in your vampire games, but what you're describing is the storyline of most of the vampire games that I've played, is like outrunning the prince's men are pissed off that you did this.
We just
and that.
killed all of them and made our own government. That's what we did in our vampire game.
Yeah.
And our government's great. It's the magical high council. All magical things are equal.
Do you really not factor in, like, humanity at all into your games?
We maybe did it for when we were first starting out, but once we decided to steal a tank from the government and drive down the Vegas Strip and absolutely blew up Caesar's palace and became terrorists, nope, we didn't do that. We're the good guys.
You can't be chaotic in real life. Why not in D&D?
I'm very soft. I never get to stab people and eat their blood.
In reality, I do feel like some of the consequences that you can retrieve from humanity or sanity or stuff like that are, like, what makes it fun. Like, those threats that something bad will happen if you do this, when you make that choice, you make it full well knowing that there are going to be consequences.
And the beauty of GM discretion, it can be like, oh, the consequence of this says that you are going to go into a catatonic, like, state for 2 years. Not gonna have that happen. Let's change it to, you know...
You cry yourself to sleep tonight.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I would like, I want to incorporate these rules more, but it's just a matter of fact of I'm so caught up in the excitement of wreck cars blow shit up that I forget about humanity, and I forget about the rules of the Masquerade.
Are we
Who
still
doesn't
talking
want to
about-
drive a tank down the Vegas Strip?
Are we still talking about the game, or is this just like,
Your
your
life.
life?
I'm talking about rules of World of Darkness, at least. I think. I'm just using examples.
I feel like it can be okay to have those kind of games, depending on the people you're with. And I think we've talked about that before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Also, celerity. You can use it to go many times in a round, depending on what version you're using. I think it's only Old World. You can't do it in New World.
I would not say that is a rule that is ignored. That is a rule that is abused.
I've used the fuck out of celerity.
If you're playing Old World, like the 2nd edition or earlier, if you don't have celerity, you are making your character wrong.
Yeah, my Matrix character could have done a lot more with more celerity.
Oh, I forgot about that Matrix game.
That's fun.
So something, regardless of game system, that always has rules in it, but are always rules that I have either ignored or I've never had come up as a player, or very extremely rarely come up as a player, is like the impact of weather, the impact of seasons. It's always the same time of year. Seasons never progress. Even you've played in game over the course of an entire year, the seasons are never described as being like, it's cold this winter, you need to make rolls while you're out and about to keep from freezing.
So it's the opposite of Ohio, in which you have every season, every week.
Or even if you do have every season, every week, you're not like, the weather isn't impacting the way your character is interacting with the world. You're not bundling up. You're not, like, whenever it's really cold, you're not, like, making sure you get enough fluids and you're taking shelter during the day during the hot summer weather.
Maybe in a collective fantasy game, sometimes we wish to escape the inexorable march of time.
Clayton, are you saying that you would like to see those things taken into account?
No, this is
something to ignore them completely.
This is something that I choose to ignore completely.
Okay.
The handful of times that we've actually used weather is to torment players that always seem to roll bad in weather conditions. So, like, everybody else will get great constitution checks in the snow, but then there's that one person that rolls a 2, and so they suffer miserably, and we laugh at them.
I am that guy.
Mm-hmm. We have somebody that's like that can't survive in nature or in the cold.
In most of my games, as a player and as a game master, the only time the weather changes is when one of the players casts one of the spells that actually affects the weather.
It gives a lot of player agency rather than world backdrop agency.
What season are
I'm
we
a
in
writer.
Never?
I think we started in fall.
We should stay there.
It's only been like a month.
Yeah, like, we don't deal with bad ship weather either. Like, if we're on a boat. You know, that's testy as hell. Like, how long were we on a ship in Urbana?
Most of the 9 months that the game took place over.
There you go. We didn't deal with weather once that I can remember. It just feels like an unnecessary addition to fun.
Not for a survival game.
Well, not for a survival game, but for like a high fantasy game, you're just like, oh, we're on a ship, traveling, woohoo!
Weather is extremely important if you're playing a storm cleric. And so you get the ability to conjure clouds by yourself. You almost have to rely on when it's raining.
Another clear day, huh? Great.
Guess I'll sit this one out, boys.
I feel like it could
Me
be
in real
important
life.
in a Pokemon game.
Pokemon.
Because then the weather affects battles and whatnot. But unless it's affecting things like storm clerics or your character.
Or war paint.
Or
War
paint.
paint.
God forbid it rains and washes off my war paint.
Hey, if it's a light rainfall, you're fine.
But it only works if you're not armored.
I'm gonna put some war paint on my monk.
Is one AC point going to make a difference?
Absolutely.
Maybe once.
Yes.
Yeah, I get
For a
wrecked
monk?
all the time.
She can't wear armor.
I'm a monk cleric. I'm their healer, and I keep going unconscious.
Whoops, buddy.
Yikes. Anyway, I hate the weather.
A tool that could be used, and mechanics that could be fun, or could be ignored. I feel like it's very situational.
I found a point in which weather would be very useful. Dramatic scene setting.
I thought you were going to say crops.
Yeah.
That's going back to the food and ration consumptions. But, you know, dramatic setting.
Yeah, it is always raining whenever there's a siege going on.
When we found gold, it was foggy and rainy, and I was like, oh, I've never heard of the weather in Nebben before.
There's nothing more dramatic than a fight scene in the middle of a rainstorm.
I'm really hoping that they're gonna, it's gonna be, raining over my character's dead body when they get back to the session on Wednesday.
That sounds pretty great, actually.
That lends more to just the aesthetics of the weather and not really
the
having
mechanics.
to deal with, we're slipping and sliding and falling all over the place since we're fighting on a battlefield in the rain.
Disadvantage on dex checks. Halved movement.
I cast Weebles Wibble Wobble, but they don't fall down.
Rough terrain, hazardous terrain could be a thing that is connected to weather.
I've never heard it used yet.
Again, it's super grid relevant. You know?
And you gotta take the time, okay, this one square right here is rough terrain. This one square right here is rough terrain. You gotta actually draw it onto the map. And
I
it
feel
just
like
takes so much time to do.
Every grid-based game could just benefit off of going to a craft store and getting a lot of clear, small, various shaped discs.
I mean, we could just use different colored dye, too. Just throw them out on there, and you're like, there's some rough terrain.
Oh, I know,
there's some rough
but then you have to
terrain.
leave it there, and then you have to put your character on top of it, and then it just gets
We did
messy.
we did the Dragon Heist module, and there's a sequence in that. Is this going to be a spoiler? It's not a big one. Okay,
It's been out for...
it's been out for a while. We're doing Mad Mage now, but there's a sequence where you're doing a chase scene across rooftops, and every time you go, you then roll a hazard dice to see what affects the person running behind you. So, if you're running forward, you might disturb a flock of birds that fly into the face of the person behind you.
Oh, you mean
or
when you hold a tree branch out and you let it go and you hit
that
it
kind of thing, but over rooftops. Yeah, that kind of
well.
thing where you have
Rooftop gardens.
and there were some weather effects that we're obviously chasing them in the rain because Dragon Heist is dramatic.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Hail?
Yeah,
We're
we
talking
can.
about. Okay.
So you can like slip on like roof tiles in the rain, but
You
that's
never
a
see that in
highly
action
specific
movies.
sequence.
Yes, you do.
Only when it's dramatically appropriate.
Again, mostly my experience with weather has been ignoring the actual mechanical repercussions, and that's probably fine. Occasional heat and cold conjects.
The fog in the swamp. We couldn't see anything.
That was,
Sorry, I was thinking of another time in which I saw weather in Nevin. That was magic, but...
Yep.
It was still really, like, it was fun, though, because we were like, oh, what's around the corner?
And then we were like, oh god, where's Ralmir?
Thank God, but he's fighting the crocodiles.
So
Never again.
Growl.
weather at its best heightens the narrative.
And the
Weather
stress.
mechanics can detract from the ease of play.
Or even the fun of play.
Mm-hmm.
Often connected. Although my friend who's the Pathfinder aficionado would disagree because he loves rules.
Oh, well, I was gonna say, like, I like a I can enjoy a difficult game, but if the difficulty impedes my fun, then I'm like, nah.
Sometimes it's fun to be complex. Like, it's foggy, I shoot an arrow into the mist and most likely hit one of my companions. Oh well.
Ease of play sometimes obstructing fun of play. Underwater combat is so much harder than necessary, and it's just like you're fighting twice as long and doing twice as much to have fewer effects, so it feels less good, and yeah.
Like in Mario.
I feel like the concept of underwater fighting is really interesting, but when it's actually being played out, it's just like a...
Great, I have disadvantage on everything. Cool.
But so do they.
Yeah.
So
then
what's
you're
the
evil.
point?
Unless
Even
they're an
mermaid.
aboleth, and they're like,
Unless you're playing
reckon you.
undersea in general, the entire game. Like if you're Atlanteans. Like, I'm used to this environment, so I have no negatives.
You also have to find some kind of way to get, like, underwater breathing that,
No.
yeah,
No.
so.
It
Just-
doesn't exist.
Have everybody make a swim check every turn for maneuvering and call it a fucking day.
I also think that underwater breathing might be a fine mechanic to use. Like, disadvantage on everything feels annoying, but, like, having to figure out how to breathe sounds reasonable.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like in The Goblet of Fire, when they had to find their own way to breathe underwater.
I think it's been mostly my DMs being like,
refuse to talk about it.
here's a gillyweed stand-in that you're going to conveniently encounter.
Yeah! Or make a level on your face like most other people.
Become a shark.
Become a shark.
I'm sorry, I've never seen Goblet of Fire.
Never?
mind.
I mean,
There
hell,
have been
I would
sharks involved in every underwater combat I've done.
I would take the advantage of turning into a shark for the hell of it for underwater combat. That would give you increased movability and breathing underwater.
And bite.
Arr, arr.
If you can have access to that.
Are there any other rules that we want to go over, or do we want to go ahead and move on to geek things and wrap up? So I'll go ahead and start because as of this recording, just a few days ago, Baldur's Gate 3 has been announced by the same people who made Divinity Original Sin. I was a huge fan of the Baldur's Gate games back in the late 90s. Played the hell out of them. Got a couple hundred hours in each of those games. Can't wait for get Baldur's Gate 3, although from what little information is available, it's going to have completely different characters. It's not going to be a direct continuation like the first two Baldur's Gates were, but I'm still very excited.
It's not a new thing, but in Nina's book recommendation corner, The Illustrated Man by Ray Bradbury, I'm halfway through it, and if you like old, not hard sci-fi, it's very good.
Yes, it is.
New favorite book.
This in your daily life of science is vaccines are good and measles are bad.
Unfortunately, we do have to remind people of that sometimes.
Unfortunately, vaccines have been around longer than you can be alive. So just do it. God, I would go into a rant, but this is just how you'll deal with me.
A few things. One, it's Pride Month. Support your LGBTQIA+ nerds. Specifically me. Give me your money. 2, Otherworld.
But also Black Girls Code is a really good nonprofit, and if you're looking into celebrating a nerd organization that helps with diversity in STEM fields, Black Girls Code.
Yes. Can we link that?
That's not up to me.
Everything that you guys mentioned for the geek things gets linked.
Wonderful. 2, Columbus is having a museum. I don't know if it's a traveling showcase, but they're currently having this world interactive thing called Otherworld about different art installations that are interactive and are supposed to transcend the person going through it into feeling like they're going through other worlds. The photos I've seen from this place look incredible. I believe they're currently sold out, but tickets are like only $22, and it's in Columbus, and I really, really want to go. So just to be on the lookout if you're looking for some inspiration or just want to have a cool museum day, Columbus. And then finally, Nina and I just got back from Colossal Con. We have a lot of pictures up on our Instagrams. You should come and check them out. You can find me on Instagram at BayTheFae. And Lanina, you can find at Sapphire Shots Cosplay. And, sorry, that wasn't finally. Finally, I have a burlesque show coming up on July 6th at the Union in Athens, Ohio. If you want to come talk to me about nerd things, I will be dressed as a gigantic fuck you fairy. My fuck you fairy wings. And it's gonna be great. So come and give me your money, please.
Back to that theme.
Cosplay is fun. Woo!
The 13th Warrior with Antonio Banderas, produced and directed and put out in 1999, is in fact a relatively okay movie despite bombing at the box office, and I would check it out. It's on Hulu.
It's essentially Beowulf, but with Antonio Banderas, who is fine.
The mobile phone game that I write for, Choices, Stories You Play, it has recently released a story where you can play as the main character in a New Orleans set urban fantasy with fae, werewolves, and dudes with crossbows. It's called Nightbound. There's lots of other games too, but that's the, nerd relevant one that is freshly out.
Alright guys, what do you say we stop this bullshit and start rolling some dice?
That's heavy dice.
This has been a production of Alien Familiar Media. You can find past episodes and more at alienfamiliar.com. You can email us at alienfamiliarmedia@gmail.com. This production is protected under a Creative Commons non-commercial attribution, no derivatives license. Music for this episode is Suburban Outlaw by Forget the Whale and can be found at freemusicarchive.org.